Darren here from Tiny Houses Australia, yet again with another grab here from the Tiny House Jamboree. With us, we've got my brother Zach Giffen, co-host of Tiny House Nation. Thank you, mate, for having the time to come and talk to us.
Well, thanks for coming all this way, Darren.
I know. Look, we hung out a couple of nights ago at the bar. It was way too late. You were even later last night, but we won't talk about that.
But we want to maximize your experience, right?
That's it.
Life's short.
That's it. So we wanted to get Zach in a corner here because we wanted to sort of get his thoughts on what the Jamboree's been like. But he's also been involved in a very special project here at the Jamboree called Operation Tiny Home. So Zach, tell us a little bit about what is Operation Tiny Home all about?
So Operation Tiny Home is a non-profit, and we travel around the country, and the goal is really to assist local organizations who are trying to construct tiny home villages for homeless veterans.
Okay.
So we go, and I teach workshops, right?
So it's this mentality of, don't feed it, don't give a fish to a guy, teach him to fish themselves so we can, that ripple effect, spread the word, and they can self-empower themselves.
Exactly, but I like to think that, we're not just teaching a man how to fish, we're teaching people how to build their own fishing pole.
Yeah.
It's one step further, because the house is just the start, right? We're talking about homelessness, which is really a symptom of a lot of other factors, right? And you can't just put the Band-Aid on the symptom, which is just getting someone underneath a roof.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing that I very much believe is that the missing element is that roof that they have over their head, it has to be more than just a locked door and security and comfort from the elements. It's got to be something that they're proud of.
Yeah. And if they're involved in building their own home, then how much pride is involved in that?
It's like my house, right? It's not big.
Yeah.
But it's pretty nice.
Tell me, how many
people say, "Hey, did you build it?" Or like, "Who built that?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah."
That's it.
I did.
Tell me, how many miles is that thing racked up now around the States? Because when I first came across you guys a couple of years ago, that had already done like 50,000 miles.
Yeah, I have no idea. I stopped counting, but I know we're well over 40,000 miles, and it's not necessarily something that I'm super proud of. I don't think that we should be super proud of just having tiny homes driving all over the place, but I think it's significant in terms of what I'm trying to do is kind of spread the word and expose people to this kind of concept. And I think when people see that the concept is different than actually seeing something in person.
Yeah.
And I think when people actually enter into a tiny home and they recognize, like, wow,
I could actually live in this. This is
it's like potentially even nicer than my house, right? I mean, my house has cherry trim. I have a a nice custom-made spiral staircase with beautiful little steps. I have all these kind of really just custom elements that people instantly recognize as love. You know, they
And
walk
especially
in.
the outdoor beer tap.
Well, they definitely understand. You know, I like to say that as tiny house people, we kind of wear our values on our sleeves.
Yeah.
And I think that when you see that I have 2 beer taps on the back of my porch, it's kind of an extension of that.
No, that's it. I mean, the reason I mentioned the mileage is we've had a lot of questions from people saying, well, will they hold up to mileage? You know, can you actually travel with them? Or are they going to shake apart? And yours is one of the examples that I use. So yeah, if you've got the truck with enough mumbo to be able to tow the thing, then yeah, they will certainly build it right, and they will certainly stand up to it. So.
Well, so that one, I have to say, I have never built another tiny house in that building technique. Mostly because I don't try to like push my own beliefs on the builders that I work with. I allow them to kind of do it. I just try to assist and help the homeowner. But when I built that home, I framed it using LVL.
Okay.
You know what LVL is? It's a laminated veneer lumber.
Okay.
So it's beam lumber, and it's very rigid. There's no knots in it, and I ripped it down to 2 inches. So my walls are actually 2 inches thick,
Okay.
which is not very thick.
So does that
but
therefore
it's a
mean
small
that-
space, and my insulation is sufficient
Yeah.
because it's small, and I got a big wood stove in it. Getting my place hot is not a
Yeah.
problem.
That's it.
And the real issue when you're traveling is shear strength, right?
Yeah.
And so what I did was I sheathed both the front and the back of that wall, and I glued and screwed everything.
Yeah.
And then when I did my trim, I was actually using subfloor adhesive, a product called PL Premium, which is a fantastic glue product, and it's definitely got quite a bit to do with how my house has completely stayed entirely intact. Like I cannot tell any difference really after 50,000 miles.
Yeah. So what sort of, because you ripped it down to 2-inch lumber, what sort of weight is your house sitting at? Do you know when it's...
Well, that was part of it, right? I was
Yeah.
trying to keep the weight down. This was at a time when I'd never read any books about it. I'd never, learned other people's processes or anything, and I was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared that I was going to make a home that was too heavy for the trailer that I had.
Yeah.
So everything I did was I did intentionally very lightweight. The whole house is 7,720 pounds.
There you go. So guys, if you're wondering, check out Zach's photos of Zach's house online. But 7,700 odd pounds is about 3.5 ton, which is legal in Australia with most heavy ass, 4-wheel drives. Heavy duty 4-wheel drives. That's what I meant. Your double cab Hiluxes, your Range Rovers, your Land Rover Discoveries, etc. Because as we discussed the other night at the bar, in Australia the issue we have is a lot of these tiny houses would never get on the road in Australia. They're just way too heavy.
Yep.
But that's cool. Tell me, what's been the highlight for you of the whole Jamboree so far?
I mean, the highlight for me is being able to be here for a couple days. I go to these events, but I typically don't necessarily have time to actually spend immersed in it.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that it's a bit of a tribe. People come here, and it's very similar in terms of the function of religion, where people want to go to a space where they feel like other people have similar values and they can relate, and just by being there they know that they can go over and say hi to someone, and it's easier to interact.
That's it.
And that's exactly what we have here at the Jamboree.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to someone the other day, I think it was Diedrichsen, that, I've been corresponding with, we've connected a couple of times, and there's so many people in the community here in the States that I've been communicating with for like 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
And when we finally meet them, it's not like, oh, hello, it's like, get out, give me a hug, It's like we're meeting long-lost family members almost.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I'm always trying to get across to people in Australia when I'm on stage at Melbourne and Sydney home shows and things is that, as you said, it's not about the house. The house is simply a tool that you can use to design the sort of life that you want. I heard an interview with you and John once online where you were talking about that. So
Yeah, I definitely believe that, and it's fantastic to see this kind of concept catching hold in other parts of the world, because as Americans, I feel like we do have a bit of a responsibility, because for whatever reason, it's kind of the world has looked at America like setting the standard of what like the good life looks like, right?
That's it.
And so if we project to the world that in order to be happy in America, you require this huge house and you require all these things.
Yeah.
That's actually projecting values that are completely unsustainable for our planet.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, somehow, as I've said it in many interviews, somehow society has come to this point where having made it and being successful is measured by the badge on the front of your car, the size of your bank balance, the size of your house, the suburb or the postcode or the zip code that you live in, when it's really should be measured in moments and experiences and sharing those experiences with people that you care
And
about.
how you treat others, right?
Yeah,
That
relationships,
the way you conduct yourself has so much more to do with the value of who you are than the size of your house or the type of car you drive. And it's very interesting to me. I was going to the Philippines, or I went to the Philippines.
That's right, you did. I saw that.
And Tiny House Nation is a huge show in the Philippines. It's very popular, and I'm thinking, what do I have to offer this culture of people who have been exploring this type of lifestyle much longer, and much more in depth? And what I recognized is that it's very popular in the Philippines simply because our show gives people permission to feel proud of themselves despite living in an apartment.
Yeah.
And we are saying that no, the fact that you live in an apartment's got nothing to do with your value as a human being.
That's right.
And it's very, it's just very reassuring for them, and they're saying thank you because this is not typical, right?
No, that's right.
And
It's not.
typically we lead people to feel inadequate and like they constantly can never live up to things.
Yeah.
We need to get past that.
That's right, and I've often said, the point that I'm always trying to get across in Australia is the fact that the people that are actually doing this, for them, it's not we've given up, where this is our last resort. This is actually a conscious choice by people.
Yes.
And I know that Lisa and I were talking about it the other day. If we won the lottery, we would still build a tiny house. We get a nicer block. We get a nicer block of land, right?
Yeah.
But we'd still build a tiny house because
Yes.
that's all we need. We had lived tiny. We lived 12 months in a 15-foot vintage caravan, and she wanted to kill me at times, but we survived. But we had all we needed, and we're actually about to move back into our.
But
baby,
you
so-
probably learned some things
I
about
learned-
what is appropriate
Yeah.
for you personally, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's what I like to try to remind people of is I'm an advocate for tiny homes, but more so I'm an advocate for appropriate sized living.
Yeah. that's
And
it.
what's appropriate for me might not be appropriate for you.
Yeah.
Your life might be more involved. I might be a scrub ski bum that's single guy that doesn't need much more than a couch and like some good snow.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it.
That's not necessarily everybody's reality.
That's it. I know you and I were both part of the Tiny House Summit online series of seminars earlier in the year, and we were watching your presentation. And you said, "Look, I'm Zach Giffen from Tiny House Nation, and the house over my shoulder is there. We've just finished this. Now, it may not look like a tiny house, but for that family, that was an appropriately sized. For them, it was a tiny house.
Yes, it was well within their budget.
Yeah.
It was drastically smaller than their last house,
Yeah.
and what he was doing
Yeah.
was using that as a tool so he could pare down on the financial obligations in his life and he could change his career path
Yeah.
because he was being, a very successful businessman in one way, but it wasn't what his passion was about. And that is the most beautiful thing that I think a tiny home can offer somebody is the ability to adjust and the ability to follow your passions.
Yeah, that's it. It's that giving them that time and cash flow freedom to do more of the things they love, whether it's I want to surf more, I want to spend more time with my partner, my kids, I want to start that business that I've always wanted to, but I've never really been able to,
And we can do more with small spaces now, right? And
Absolutely.
I think what we're doing, what I like to do is it's kind of like a scientific exploration on like what you can do. And there's a lot of smart people engaged in that same exploration, and it's super inspiring and fun to see it all in one place. That's why the Jamboree is so amazing.
Yeah, it is very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, we are going to talk to Zach. We have talked to Zach about getting these boys down to Australia. We're going to make it happen.
Please,
We're going to make it happen.
get me to Australia.
Cool. We're
Come
gonna
on.
We're going to make it happen.
I'm a terrible surfer, but I need to go get crushed by waves for
That's
sure.
it. Cool. Mate, thank you very much. Come here.
All right,
All right. Good to see you, man. We'll hang out
All
at
right.
the bar tonight.
Hey, thank you for coming.
no,
I
it's
know
been-
it's a long ways.
No, it was well worth it.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
Yeah.
Guys, this has been me. That's been Zach. That's been Lisa behind the camera. Say hi.
Hi.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, guys, and we'll catch you on another video.